I call the meeting of the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors to order. It's 6 p.m. We're at the central office. Please, let's do the agenda review. So I have heard of no changes to the agenda. Does anyone have any changes?
Nope.
Okay, so the agenda is accepted without objection. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please join me and pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is the visitor section. Do we have anyone present in the room that wishes to address the board?
Yes, we do.
You do? Okay, just give me a second, please.
Okay.
When I can hear you, but just, can you give me just one moment, sir? I got to read a little preamble to this. So the public comments visitor section of the meeting is an opportunity for community members to address issues of concern about policy, budget, and administrative matters, or to share ideas about how we can work together to improve our schools. We value input and respect divergent views. We ask that you limit your remarks to the time of 3 minutes per topic, and refrain from airing grievances with individual members of the school community, including respecting the privacy of students and parents. If you wish to speak, please state your name and where you live. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Dan Pipes. I live in Fairfield.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity to address the board again. I've done this once before. It's a troubling time for our community academically. Student proficiency, and by this I mean the ability to function at grade level, in almost every area continues to drop to astonishingly low levels. Sadly, it's not a problem unique to Vermont. We're failing as a nation to educate our children to a level that will ensure a prosperous and safe future. Clearly, this is systemic. Something has gone horribly wrong with the way that we deliver education to our kids. We pay more per student in Vermont than every state in the union except for one. Depending on the source, the estimates range from $22,000 to $25,000 annually per child. At the same time, the number of children enrolled in Vermont has dropped by 30% in the last decade. Our taxes increased significantly this year, and the legislature is quick to point out that the cost of education is the primary driver. My taxes personally increased by almost $5,000 this year alone. My wife and I are retired. We're on a fixed income. Our children are grown and gone, both living out of state. And I hear from legislators that we can expect another 8% at least tax increase in the following year. Look, I recognize education is one of the most critical solutions to the societal malaise that grips our nation today, and I wouldn't mind as much paying the increasing taxes if we were getting a return on our investment. Clearly, we're not. Your product, our students, are not being equipped to join the workforce as productive members unless they can read, perform math, I'd argue geometry and maybe some algebra, have an understanding of our nation's history, how our government functions, basic science, and in Dan's perfect world, speak another language and at least attempt to play a musical instrument. We need to reset priorities to focus on functional education. If a student is college bound, they should be pressed academically and challenged to exceed their grade level proficiency, not just attain it. If not college bound, they should be allowed to enroll in trades programs that will allow them to make a living and contribute to our communities. We need more young people in all of our trades, but I'm getting a little off target here. If Maple Run's vision statement is to articulate what you're currently focused on, I strongly encourage you to lead with the most important things first. My suggestion is one sentence. Empower students to excel academically and grow into responsible citizens. You can add all the other things after, but this should be our focus. It should be right the first thing that's stated in the vision statement. And I would like to understand the metrics that are used to measure success for the mission statement, but maybe someone can explain to me after I'm done my comments.
3 minutes, sir. Sorry, it's been 3 minutes.
Okay, can I take 3 minutes for the vision statement then?
Okay.
Thank you. So, in my career, we never reinforce failure. We reinforce success. And I hope that's true with your planning and assessment systems. Of the two vision statements that have been offered, I prefer the second, with its obvious allusion to our rural communities in the maple industry. I would ask that you consider taking the word "can" out and make the statement active, not passive. So it would read, at Maple Run Unified School District, we're committed to cultivating a welcoming environment where our students and community tap into their love of learning. It's just an active statement. But, let me see, I have one more statement to make. I would rather the vision statement also mention functional literacy and our students' successful integration into our communities. In one sentence, we are committed to the graduation of students who have attained functional literacy and are prepared to be productive members of our communities. Look, I value educators and education. My mom was a high school teacher for almost 40 years. My sister currently teaches ESL and American Sign Language in Pennsylvania. And I recognize I've thrown a lot out in a short amount of time. I hope no one takes it as a personal attack. It's not meant that way. But something has to change. We cannot continue to ask our communities to fund failure at ever-increasing rates. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any
Thank you, sir.
questions? Any questions for me or a follow-up or discussion?
No, thank you. We're all set. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else wish to speak?
No,
Yes, please.
I don't have anything so grandly prepared.
That was about a half an hour this afternoon, so not about
I wasn't necessarily planning on speaking. But I just wanted to speak to the special session that just happened to take bids on the alternative.
Excuse me. Sorry, can you just state your name?
Sure, sorry.
For record.
Dina Brown, and I'm from St. Albans. And I wanted to speak to the special meeting that just happened recently for the bids for Maple Run District alternative school placement. And just wondering, knowing from that meeting that there are already staff that are hired, now we have a placement, more information. I mean, it looks like the plan was to go live with that in November. I'm assuming that that's kind of a fluid date, a fluid month. But it seems like staff's been hired, we have a building that has to be fit up, but what is the intention of that program? What population are we, what's the criteria to be able to, that we're putting those students in, right? What's the criteria for selection? And what is the goal with that program? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have that presentation that we put forward to the last speaker, and she could get some info from that. Is that doable?
Yes, it's very doable. I would ask that Aaron or John or Bree, sorry I'm not at the meeting tonight, but that they get her contact information and we can get her that information and answer her questions.
Right, that would be perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have any comments from the public? Anyone in the room wish to speak? I'm seeing none. Anyone online wish to speak? John, any requests?
No one online, Hilda.
Okey doke, so we'll move on now.
We
What's that?
We do have one more person. I kind of dragged.
Oh. Okay, yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Bureau, St. Albans Town resident. My wife's the manager. I kind of listened in on the last special meeting about the proposed or what moving forward with leasing a space in Highgate Commons. Just want to make a couple points that I know the district was offered a building in the town, not of the town, in the town by a private residence, something like 13,000 square foot about a year and a half ago. So I don't know if you members were aware of that, but there is space. It's sold now, so it's not possible. Also, we've had some instances in that plaza where the Northwest Correctional Center drops people that get out of prison off in that plaza, and there no bus ticket, no nothing back to Burlington. Because Chittenden County send everybody to prison, and if they get out in a day or two, they're left off at Hannaford. There's been carjackings, I think, and there's been some instances up there. You can check with the police department or the sheriff past. So I just want to make sure if you go through with putting the 20 student center up there, that you have safety protocols for all the students that are in that. Because police are way down on this end. It's kind of sitting out there on its own little island. So just be aware of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, anybody pop up, John, on the Zoom?
No one's asked to speak, Nilda.
Okay, we're gonna then move on. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. There are minutes to 2 meetings and the media packet in the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything out to discuss individually? Hearing none, the consent agenda is accepted without objection. The next item is reports to the board. Student reports to the board. I saw Jacoby earlier. Is anyone there? I can't see just my. Hi, Jacoby.
Hello. We'll let Joanne, I guess. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who came tonight to speak out to the board. I think it was great to have 3 different people come. Usually we don't have anyone, so it's nice to not be the only one that's giving a report. So thank you all for doing that, having that courage. In terms of the, student report, we haven't really done all that much as we have been super busy and everything. As you can tell, everyone is leading very busy lives, which is great. However, we have been continuing working on planning our projects for the Student Voice Committee based on the district goals, and so we have been brainstorming about, we've taken each goal and we've taken a meeting for each goal, brainstorming the projects, and then after we do that, we are then going to take a look and see how they align with our mission statement, and any projects that then align with the mission statement will then be moved on to the next step, which is when we have Up for Learning, who is a consulting group that I am actually, I work for them as well, but I will not be working with them while they are at BFA. But they're gonna come, they're gonna help us do some action planning ideas once we figure out what projects we do want to move forward with, because we'll probably have about 40 to 50 brainstorm projects, and the goal is to narrow that down at least in half, if not to 20 projects in total amongst our 10 members. So that's kind of our plan, and in that, I know we've talked about doing some more outreach to other people, and in that there was lots of survey opportunities, like going to the BFA Fine Arts Night, the play at BFA, which is like the week before Thanksgiving break, I think, and going to the BFA Experience Night, and just asking 3 simple questions about what's going well, what can we be doing better, and what is, I forget what the 3rd question was. What supports do you need in our district? That's also something that we would love to have board members doing with us, and that's a good opportunity for you all to check one of those boxes of like, hey, I did this outreach. So yeah, I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Jacoby?
That last time, what date was that?
The dates, I'm not totally sure on the dates, but once I do, I will send them to, I have to send them to Aaron, right? And then you send them to everyone? Okay, yeah, I'll try and figure out the dates for the next week, and then you all will have those dates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
What's that? Let's move on. Next item is old business. We have a bunch of old business. The first thing is the mission and vision, and this is possible action. Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us started.
Yep. So after the last meeting, we let everyone know that we had paper and some laminate ways of collecting responses about the mission and vision. I want to thank a gentleman who came tonight to express his comments on that. That's great. Marianne took up the opportunity, and there's a live document that Aaron Ruschel has been keeping with tallies. We've kept the outreach survey, which is up, which now has 63 responses on it. We were at 39 last time we met, the last meeting. And then Marianne, we put yours, we'll try to tally those within there as well, but there were a lot of written comments on the papers that you brought back. So Aaron was like, I just want to try to find a way to show that. So that's on another tab. Yeah, I saw. Yeah, okay, good. So I just she's like, how do we do this? And I said, well, let's just try to put it on another tab. We can put them together. But that, with those two responses, if you go to the bottom of the document, there's a majority of folks just by one vote for the mission, the longer mission. And there's 33 of that, and there's 32 of the shorter mission. Maple Run strives to ensure meaningful, flexible, rigorous, and safe education for all to thrive. And on the vision side of that, it's pretty overwhelming that both from the responses you collected, Marianne, and from what's been online, that people like at Maple Run, for the vision at Maple Run Unified School District, we are committed to cultivating a welcoming environment where our students and community can tap into their love of learning. I actually agree with a gentleman that commented that getting rid of the can would make it a much more active verb. I don't know why I didn't catch that earlier, since I was the one doing some of that. So I appreciate that grammar help there. So that's what we have right now. One of the things that, as we've been talking about the mission and vision and the different pieces in the budgeting, this is a piece that the leadership team will use. It's not the only thing. We'll use our goals and our strategic plan too to guide our development of the budget. But this is a big piece. So I would ask the board to consider coming to something tonight, to selecting one, and we can always revisit it. We could say, hey, we're going to try this for a certain amount of time. We'll come back and revise, review how it's working. But that's what I have for you, Nilda, to start off the conversation.
Okay. So I guess the question is, what's the pleasure of the board? Are we ready to take action on the mission and vision? Do we need more discussion? Let's see what we all want to do.
Trying to get everybody in the same. Okay. Any comments? Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a clarification question. Bill said 32 votes for the meaningful, flexible, rigorous, but on the docket, it looks like it says 23. Is it 23? Is it 32?
What I was doing, Joanne, is there's two worksheets there from the paper forms that Marianne.
So you added together?
I added them together.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Just trying to help make it a little more streamlined.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any opposition to taking action on what we have tonight? I'm not hearing any.
I think people are thinking.
Okay. I'll give you some minutes to think.
I guess my question would be, if we were to take action, would we just be voting on one of these four? Like, what would that look like?
I mean, I think we would say the mission is, and we'd state the one that got the most votes, and the mission, the vision is, and we'd vote. And then we'd have a mission and a vision that we can put in place for a while. If we, as Bill said, if we sense a need to revise that, we could work on that in the future. But everything sort of dovetails off the mission and vision, as you all know. So we need to be concrete about it. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're drastically different. The two choices for each. I think it's just sort of how people speak, I think, and how complex the sentences are. I think it's important to, keep this simple, but try to encompass everything. If you look at our current mission, it's way too long and way too all encompassing, right? So we need to pare it down. I don't know. That's how I see it. Bill, do you see it any differently? We vote for a mission and a vision and go from there.
Yeah, I think someone proposes which way you want to go. I think there's, I gave my viewpoint on the vision, and I think there's a little wording tweak that could be done there to make it more active, which is a really good point.
Yep.
We should have active verbs, especially in a vision and a mission.
Yep.
And that, helps guide our work. But there
Right.
may be other opinions of the board, so.
Right. So, board. I need to see more board. Thank you. Anybody have any comments?
I don't want to call you on the spot, but I might. If I hear no one complain, I'm going to assume that you all agree that we should take a vote on the mission and the vision tonight.
Sure.
If someone believes we need more time, we need to speak up and give some reason for why you think that's the case.
I'm newer on the board, but I really feel like only 120 people's voices to do the mission and vision isn't enough when our district has like 2,000 students. And so I don't know how to outreach further to get more of an input into our mission and vision, because I really feel like this is just a small amount of people making the decision. And so I don't know how the outreach would be to get more people to vote on this, but I was doing the calculations, and 33 out of 64 voted for one. That's only 51%. And the other one is 38 over 63, that's 60%. So I really feel there's no majority yet. We were doing the calculations on how many actually have said yes over how many have actually done it, because we have several who have said no and we have other ideas in. I don't know how to actually encompass everybody's idea into this, but I really feel just having this small amount of pool isn't enough to have enough voices in it.
Yeah, you make a good point, Nakula, I think that it's all how you do the math too, right? Because we have to incorporate some of the ones that are on the second page. And also, this isn't really like statistically significant type stuff, right? It's not like we sent out a survey, we sent out a certain N and we're waiting for, 33% to come back, or whatever the magic number is these days, to validate this survey as being responded to. I mean, when you think of the population of City Town and Fairfield, the N could have been huge, right? If everybody had put in a vote. I think it's pretty good that we got as many responses as we have gotten, you know, because we have 63 people that gave some input, and we're sort of able to carve out a mission and a vision out of this. I don't know. I understand what you're saying about the percentages are not dramatic, but I don't know. Amanda, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I hope that includes all of our surveys too. I don't know, I just think maybe it wasn't like sent out. If it was sent out directly to people, like I never received an email of the survey, I just know about it because I'm here and I saw it on social media. I shared it with people, I don't know if they took it or not, but I know if I shared it directly with someone, they were like, oh yes, I'll fill it out. That's what they said. So I think directly sending it to people, not just putting it on social media, that may have helped a little bit more.
What, wasn't it directly sent to some groups, Bill? Or am I mistaken on that?
I would have to check with Aaron. I thought it was, but I could be mistaken as well. So I just have to comment that, you know, I understand the number is not what any of us hoped for. But when we were doing our strategic planning goals, we outside of, and I don't know what of the 63 is faculty and staff and students, but I know that, you know, when we did our listening sessions with students, with the whole community for both developing the goals and the strategic plan, probably 80 to 90% of it was staff and students. Now, we didn't get numbers higher than 300, and that was during the strategic plan, and during the goals, we never even saw greater than 50. I agree with Nakuma. I'd like to have a lot more, but I think there's a point when a leader or a board or a group of folks have to make a decision. And so I think you had the right question, Nilda, saying, are we at the point where we can make a decision or not? So.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, just.
Experience? Thank you for going out and getting those responses for us. Jessica?
Yeah, I'm okay with the numbers because I do feel like a lot of the comments are pretty repetitive. I'm not sure how much more variation we would get if we sent it out. I think the issue I have now is that the two that have the most votes are very similar to me. Like it's not really a big distinction between the mission and the vision. And in my mind, the mission should be more concise, and then the vision kind of expands it. But the way the two that are at the top, it just seems very overlapping to me. But that might just cause me to vote for the shorter mission, I guess, but that's just my thoughts.
Hey. Anyone else? Comment, Jerry?
Yeah, I would love to, you know, go out and beat bushes, go door to door with the survey for this. But one of the limiting factors on it, I think, is that we have a backlog of policies to consider that are all going to be informed by the mission and the vision. And we also have budget work that is going to be starting up very soon. We are going to have to work very hard on the budget. So I think it would be beneficial for us to come to a decision tonight if we can. To speak to the comments that we got in the public session, I am a little embarrassed that I didn't think to cut the can in the proposed vision statement, but I do think that's a good idea. In terms of including specific areas like literacy in the vision statement, I'm more hesitant to put something like a specific subject out there to kind of basically imply that there's, you know, like tiers of different things that are important, but that also factors into our teaching and learning goals, which is a policy that's going to be informed by this. but my bottom line is I think it would benefit us to come to a decision if we can.
Charles, if I may, I know I'm not a board member, allowed, that's why I said specifically functional literacy as a term. And that can be interpreted any number of ways. So I think people could work with that.
Okay, thank you, sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you for that.
This is really a board meeting, so
I
I'm sorry
understand.
we can't engage in a conversation with you, but we get your point.
I just have one other comment.
Yeah,
So for the mission, just thinking about grammar, how it says Maple Run strives to ensure, would we consider Maple Run ensures a meaning, flexible, rigorous, safe education, rather than like we're just striving, but we may or may not?
That's where we were before.
I think-
I voted as ensures, the folks were concerned about, yeah, guaranteeing that we're working towards it.
Yeah, I will say, like, we went through this process last year. It's really hard to figure out where you want to land as a mission and vision statement. I will say the vision should be really short and simple. It's like a 1 sentence, maybe 2 sentence things that is very broad, because your vision, it's all around you. It's very broad. If you have a specific vision, then your mission has to be even more specific. And your goal for your mission is to be shorter than that up there, because that is also quite a long mission. And the shorter it is, the better. Your vision is where you see yourself. Your mission is how you're going to get there. And I think having it be an active voice cuts words out, and you want to have, the most generally understood language, but keeping it broad and specific, and where your mission talks about, does it talk about like an equitable education, or like inclusive and stuff like that? Like that stuff is like, broad enough but specific enough to be in the vision, to be in the mission, sorry. And I think just keeping it short and simple and concise will be the best way that it is.
So which ones would you pick?
I would pick, let me open the document. I've just been kind of listening around here for what people were saying. Where are we looking? Is it the top ones?
This is
Okay. The bottom ones, I would say Maple Run strives to ensure a meaningful, flexible, rigorous, and safe education for all to thrive and excel or succeed. Would be like,
That's too long.
yeah.
That's too long?
Or Maple Run to ensure we all want boys and girls. Maple Run strives to ensure. Yeah, I'd say number 76. Column 76 looks good. Or 77.
We don't have.
Oh, I mean like row 70.
Yeah, we don't have.
I think that, so,
I'm gonna tag on to something Charlie said. I don't know if someone's speaking, I can't tell, but we're taking an incredible amount of time doing this. And I know that this drives a lot of the other stuff, but we have to stop somewhere and come up, make a decision, because we've got a bucket load of decisions to make in a really short amount of time. And I don't mean just tonight. I mean, doing this, doing policies, getting prepped for the budget. And this is going to be the hardest prep for a budget we've ever done as a group. And some of you, it'll be kind of the first pass at it. I think the best approach would be for someone to make a motion. We vote on the motion, you exercise your democratic right to vote yay or nay, and we see where we land, and then take it from there. And
You want to start?
who's making that motion?
Amanda.
Okay,
you gotta actually make the motion, because it's.
I'm gonna make a motion that we accept our mission statement as Maple Run strives to ensure a rigorous, meaningful, excellence, and safe education for all to thrive. Maybe not excellence, but
Excellent.
excellence. Is it excellence? Maybe I'm reading the wrong line.
I would just get rid of excellent.
Safe education, 71, line 71. Maple Run ensures a meaningful, flexible, rigorous, and safe education for all to thrive and excel.
That's a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yes.
We ready to vote on that? Or any more discussion needed? Okay, Amanda,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
you say yes?
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Nakuma,
No.
did you say no? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
I said no.
Suzanne,
I just wanted to clarify that it was 70 that Amanda proposed.
71.
Twenty-one, we should put down.
71.
It's the same.
Strides.
I'm gonna say yes.
Suzanne, you said yes?
I did.
Joanna,
All right, I need to reread, because mine is coming up strangely, so hold on a second. All right, so the only different word is Excel.
And strides
Strides.
is not there.
I guess I gotta say no.
you're gonna say what?
I have to say no.
Who's that, Joanna?
Yep.
So, I need to understand what just happened, please.
You asked us
I
to
think
vote.
we've got 7 yeses and I guess 1 no, combining Fairfield's vote.
Yeah,
I mean, there's 2 individual no's, but Fairfield is a half each, correct?
no,
Yes.
you had Nakuma. I think I heard Nakuma say no. And I heard Joanna say no, which would be a vote and a half.
Correct.
Okay, sorry, I wrote next to the wrong person. Okay, so it's 7 to 1.5. So the motion carries.
Motion carries. I'm not sure your math is right, but
Could be 6 to 1.5 or 8 to.
it'd be 6,
Jack's not here.
right? And he's a full vote, so it's 6.5 to 1.5.
The other 0.5. Thank you. Yes, 6.5 to 1.5. Okay, thank you for that. Next is the vision. Would anyone like to tackle a motion on the vision? Please.
I'll make a motion to pass the vision of at Maple Run Unified School District. We're committed to cultivating a welcoming environment where our students and community tap into their love of learning.
Second.
thank you. There's a motion and a second. Let's vote on that. Any that goes. Amanda,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
No.
Nakuma,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Joanna.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion carries. And I think that's 7.5. No, 7 to 1?
No, but it's 7.5 to 0.5.
That's what I was gonna say originally. Getting thrown off here by paper. All right, so we have a mission and a vision, as painful as that was for us.
We can start adding that to our footers on some of our papers and have it in our vision, no pun intended, as often as we can to try to get it straight in our brains.
Yeah, we'll work with the schools and the other to get them switched around. It may take us a little while, but we'll get to it as quickly as we can.
Thank you all. Moving on, plan for meeting board goals. Again, you all have those forms to fill out when you attend events. I know Suzanne said cross-country events. Did anyone else come up with any events that they're gonna either have attended or plan on attending that we can add to the list at this time?
I mean,
Go ahead.
I'm fortunate to have kids who are in a lot of different arts and music, so I'm going to be at basically any sort of musical performances going on at St. Albans City, and I'm going to be at the BFA play, possibly ushering, and I'm hoping to try to identify a couple things not at city school and or at town school in Fairfield that I can go to, but I haven't nailed those down yet.
Great, thanks, Charlie. Anyone else have any plans? You don't have to have them yet. We've got a while to do this. I just want to keep it on everyone's radar to do it.
All right, moving on to considerate, this is old business theme, consideration of a policy committee. Again, this is possible action. So I would like a motion that says that the administration recommends that the board establish a policy committee composed of 2 board members, 2 community members, and a superintendent to review, revise, and recommend policies to the board when required, recommended by the administration or requested by the board. And I can make that motion. So if I make that motion, I just need a second, please.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Okay, some discussion. So the idea of this is so that we don't have to work on policies at the actual meetings, that we can get a subgroup of people who are willing to do actual policy work. And this subcommittee would either meet when either called upon by the superintendent or the board chair. And unless we have a reason for it and it's reestablished at the next organizational meeting, it will just, be disbanded. Right now, as you notice, we have 5 policies. If we can get through 1 or 2 tonight, that would be great, but it will give us an opportunity. So if this motion passes, which I hope it does, then we'll have the opportunity for board members to volunteer to be on this committee. We need 2, and then a couple of community members. We have a couple of people that we thought about. I haven't been able to get in touch with both of them yet, so I don't want to disclose their names, but and then obviously the superintendent. Any
I'd be
questions?
interested in being a community member, ma'am, on that. If you consider me, I'd be interested in being one of the community members on that.
Okay,
So,
tell me your
I'd be
name
glad
again.
to send you
We'll
pardon
put
me?
you down. We'll put you on the list. Did you say Bill Pikes?
Dan Pipes, and I can send you a resume should you be interested.
Stan Pipes. Oh God, I'm
Bio,
sorry.
Really, not a resume. I'm not.
I really
There you
screwed up your name. I apologize.
go.
All right.
It's okay. No, that I can
thank-
get his. Yeah. But should you need a community member, I'd be willing to assist with that.
I'd be interested as well.
Who else is interested?
He already has my contact information.
And you were, again, your name?
Dina Brown.
Thank you, Dina.
Joanna?
I am not opposed to policy committee. I do like the idea of, I would rather make the committee, how we would comprise of it, but I'm not really interested in it just being standing people all the time, because I think that different people have different expertise, and that we should tap into different people depending on what the policy is that we are going to be going over, instead of it just being a standing committee for all
Not a bad
policies.
idea.
So I think we could say, 2 board members, like we can make the appointments.
We can scramble that up. I like that. If we can get people that are willing to do that,
Yeah.
we definitely could do that.
one board member having to do it for a whole year or whatnot, and this way we can all have turns, because we all have busy seasons and lighter seasons, and this way we can alleviate if somebody gets in a busy season that's already on the board for that.
And involve more community members too. than just two.
Absolutely, right, people with expertise in that area, yeah, for sure.
If there are board members that are, hang on just a sec, Bill, if there are board members interested, they should let us know. Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, I've had a bunch of history of working with policy committees, and Nilda, as you and I talked, I said there's pluses and minuses to this, and I understand the wanting to include everyone from for depending on the policy. That could really slow down the work of a policy committee. One of the things is when I approached this idea with you was like really trying to take it from that there was some expertise from organizational expertise, and that we also had some liability expertise, either from an insurance field or a lawyer on it. And it's really looking at the expertise of the board. What I wonder about is if we were constantly changing folks, how if the amount of meeting that would have to happen in order to get policies up and going. It really, this is part of it. We had a lot of ours recommended from VSBA, and need to follow those because they're vetted by the state's attorney and joint legal support from the legislature, because usually they come down that way. So I want to caution the board on the rotation of members. But it's your decision to make as a board.
Well, it's a good point. I mean, we can get started and see how it goes. I don't know if we have to make the decision tonight that it's a rotating group, or can we just establish the ad hoc committee and establish that membership is 2 board members, 2 community members, and the superintendent, and then let us figure out how that all shakes up. Is that something we can do? I mean, I know we can do it. Is that the pleasure of the board?
Before we decide that, we've got Shinobi.
Yeah, I guess I just have one question is, like, are the policies like directly impacting like students? Because I'm just wondering if it makes sense to have students on the committee too, like if that's like allowed or something, like not just myself or the other board members that come, but engaging other students in the opportunity to work with the board. That was something you all had thought about, because I think that's important too, like if we're talking directly about policy, like students informing policy that happens to them.
Yeah, that's good input, Jacoby. Admittedly, we did not talk about student. If you look at the 5 policies that are on the agenda tonight, some 1 or 2 of them clearly touch students, but not all of them do. So I guess we'd have to look at that on a case-to-case basis and have administration guide us in whether we need a student on certain policy work. I'm not trying to dismiss what you're saying, Jacoby, I'm just trying to.
No, yeah, I understand completely. Like, we don't need a student on something that's like completely legal based, like I was, because then that wastes their time as well. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I like where you're going with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So
Just one question, what is the timeline for getting these policies written and set?
good question.
So far, they've been on our agenda last meeting, and we didn't, or not the last meeting where we did the bids, but the meeting before that. And they're on tonight, and we can try to see if we can accomplish something on these tonight, but we need to get these moving because again, these drive our work and these drive a lot of the budget work, especially class size and teaching and learning, drive the budget work, I think. Building use, I don't think is attached to the budget. Equity policy is sort of bigger than just the budget. And fundraising policy, I think that's just cleaning up some housekeeping for, the district. So that isn't as, so I think there's two, long story short, I think there's two policies here that need to be turned around relatively quickly. And the other policies not quite as tight a time frame. Do you disagree with me, Bill?
No, I'm with you on that, Nilda. I was getting ready to talk and you took what I was gonna say.
Oh, maybe I could be superintendent.
Sure.
Uh, That was a big joke, just so y'all know.
I got it. I think we all got it.
So.
Can I ask,
consent-
one quick thing, Hilda? So, Bill, I don't know how you feel about this, but would it be possible, like, I know you were talking about the concern about time constraints, and I guess I was looking at it in a different way, but I understand there's only one of you, but could you be present, and maybe could John be present at one, and then you could be having multiple groups meeting, simultaneously. Not to make any final decisions, but, just like in the beginning stages. But it just seems like it would be more effective if we had multiple groups.
You're talking about the superintendent and the assistant superintendent.
Yeah, because if we're talking about making a motion about, the groupings of people that would be in attendance at the meeting, the superintendent is a singular person, right? So I'm wondering if you would be comfortable if it could be a couple of different, somebody from the leadership team or something, because that would make it more efficient.
Yeah, the policy work is something that we have the functions of the system divvied up. And so the policy work is usually something that's under my work, because John and I try to divvy up the different pieces of superintendent / assistant superintendent learning work. I haven't thought about that, Joan. I just haven't. I will tell you, I'm sitting here trying to think on the spot, and it's usually not great because I have come in with this one model. So I'd want to think about that. I don't know that. I just don't know. That's the best I can say.
Right. I think you guys are thinking, and that's good. We're trying to, make this work. Can we say, I'd be, as the maker of the motion, I'd be willing to modify the motion to say superintendent or designee as needed, something like that. Bill, that would give you the opportunity to designate.
Yeah, it would.
We have a question from the co-host.
My question is more about once the committee's formed, Scott would figure.
Okay. So if the motion got modified to say all I said, and then the superintendent or designee as needed, can we vote on that motion?
You want to add a student as well as needed?
So I want to check with someone before we went and did that. So not the students, but I want to check with our attorney.
Yeah, check with Lee. Yeah.
I want student, don't hear me wrong. I want student voice in our policies. I think you've all seen that in the work we've done. So I'm not trying to get rid of the student voice. It's where I want to go consult the law book as well as what's allowed for student representatives on the board. There are certain times where, and I just don't remember, and I'm sorry, I don't have my law book right here. I can try to look it up electronically, but I would just need to check that reference.
Are you good with that, Jess?
Sure. So are we still gonna vote, or are we gonna wait until Bill checks?
Good question. I'd like to vote. And then if we get information that requires us or prompts us to change the motion or make a new motion or add to a motion or add a person to a committee, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We can do that. We can add persons to committees anytime we want as a board, right? if they're legal.
We might also want to, if we want to leave the possibility of the student on the committee open, we could add, just up to X number of students, which, then we can, check our legal standing, and if the up to has to be 0, then we've left ourselves that leeway in the actual wording.
Yeah, I was actually gonna suggest that anyway, like to be like, depending on what it is you might not want any students there because there's no need. Or there might be one where it's like maybe 2 or 3, or maybe one where it's just 1. So I was thinking like that up to X amount of students, language could work like a little bit better than just saying just 1 or always 3 or
Yeah. So it's coming back to me why we eliminated committees on the board. Because they're really hard to manage. And this board is pretty big, and prior to Maple Run, the boards were up quite a bit smaller and still were difficult to manage. We don't want to make this a headache. What we're trying to do is streamline some processes. And if we're going down the wrong path, we can just abort right now and just keep going as we're going. I think it's going to slow down the policy process. But we can do that, and we can stay here and hash them out at a full board meeting like this and ask Bill questions, and he can go research and come back 2 weeks later with responses, or email us with a response if it's something that we can get timely. This isn't meant to be complex or cause all this angst, and because it isn't worth it. We can just sit here and talk about it. We already, spent a half hour talking about a policy ad hoc committee when we could have been talking about a policy, right? So I'm going to turn this around again. What's your pleasure? I want to do what you guys want. This is for the board to be able to do some work and make some decisions.
Joanne?
So I feel I understand that it's not always convenient for people to have a policy committee because it is hard to wrangle people together. But we are trying to get more input from community, from parents, from organizations. So this is a perfect opportunity to be doing that. So sometimes what's convenient, is different than what's important. And I think that this is important. I think that we have been too long doing it ourselves. And I think that it would be better to put it out there and make sure that there are different groups of people represented on this committee.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyone else?
The more people you have and the more people that are involved, the more likely it's going to pass without issue. And it is a good opportunity. I mean, if we have to prioritize the 2 to move them quickly, then we can do that. But if the other ones aren't on a timeline, then we can just take our time and do it right.
And also, the more likely that the community will actually like what you put out there and will want to be engaged more and pass the budget and et cetera. It's a trickle-down effect.
I'm hopeful. Yeah. So I think I'm hearing that we do want an ad hoc policy committee. We do want this distribution for now, and we want to take a vote right now. Is that okay?
I hate to go through, to put you through this, but could we just clarify the wording of what we're voting on, what the motion is?
Sure, that'd be my pleasure. I'm serious. I am serious. Administration recommends that the board establish an ad hoc policy committee composed of 2 board members, 2 community members, and the superintendent or designee as needed to review, revise, and recommend policies to the board when required, recommended by the administration or requested by the board. Subcommittee will meet. It's right off your agenda here. Subcommittee will meet when either the superintendent or the board chair calls the meeting. Unless established by the board, it will be disbanded at the annual organizational meeting. That is my a little bit updated motion.
Second.
Thank you. And now we're going to take a vote. Amanda,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Nakuma,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Joanna,
I will vote yes if we come back to include the students once Bill gets his answer.
Yeah, and I'm not, I'm not gonna get my answer
you
tonight.
can't vote yes and on an if. You gotta either vote yes or no, because we can't if it. The motion
Okay.
is,
With the
we'll
plan
get
to-
the answer, Bill will get us a response, and then if we need to make a modification, we can do it then.
Okay.
Joanna, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Nilda votes yes. Motion carries. Ah! Anyway. So, thank you for that. So the policies that we have on the agenda are class size policy, review building use policy. I believe that those two policies that you have attachments that have red lines in them. Am I correct that your packet shows red line versions?
Oh, Nilda,
Yeah,
the red line version is on the building use policy right now.
okay,
The
okay.
rest of them don't have red line pieces. That's the only one that does.
Okay, so let's switch to the building use policy, please, so we can look at that red line.
Building use.
Yeah, so this is 7D2.
7D2, yes.
Which one?
If you open up the attachment on page 1, there should be red text. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm looking at mine on my phone and I can't see red text. Is that normal?
You in there?
It's the top.
The top one has it, and the second one is the original without the amended.
7B2, right?
Gotcha.
That's the amended on the bottom of the.
I found it. Thank you. When I looked earlier or yesterday, it wasn't red line. Okay, so there's basically one section in this policy. So let's make a motion to accept the building use policy as revised for discussion, please. Okay, who wants to make that?
I'll make the motion to come on.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, moving to the discussion section.
So, Nilda, can I give a
Yeah.
report from the last meeting to now?
I would love it.
Me to do some work.
I would love it.
After talking with our attorney, as I said, he had recommended that we don't have businesses because, and further conversations with him since the last meeting, and I'm sorry I didn't have this clarified. If we open it up for profit businesses to use our facilities, we can't judge which ones we can allow in or not. We have to let them all in. And so then, as you asked as a board, I went and had a conversation with Tim Vians, our director at Collins Pearly. And I talked to Tim, and he's, past 6 to 8 years, he can only remember one for-profit business using the facility. And the rest have been nonprofits, but he doesn't want to get rid of the ability at Collins Pearly because it is our community center for being able to say yes to for-profit businesses. So if for-profit businesses would follow our policies, procedures, and practices and fee structures. So we wrote, and I passed it by our attorney. He was all for the for-profit entities shall be permitted to hold events at Collins Pearly only if all other provisions of this policy are fully complied with. And that use of all other district facilities for profit entities is prohibited, and end it there. So That was his advice. He agreed with that. He said we could not put a proviso, which you'll see a strike through in your copy that you're looking at, or to judge it against our mission, vision, and goals, because we're not allowed, since we are a public facility, to allow to make judgments about who we allow in and who we don't.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you for that information.
Yep.
Okay, so with that info, and that revision that has been clarified for us, are we ready to take a vote? I'm gonna say that, I think that's a yes. Amanda,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Nakuma,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nilda votes yes. We have just revised the building use policy unanimously. Yay. Okay, so the other one that we might be able to tackle fairly quickly is, I don't know, class size, maybe not. What about, what do you think, Bill? Out of
I
the
want to
others?
ask the board a question about class size with our
Sure.
policy, and I don't think I did a good job of expressing this at the last meeting. You asked for some information, so we sent you some research information. I want to apologize if it was a little obtuse. I did get into, I was saying to Nilda that I brought on a vocabulary that I use for other writings instead of my general district writings. But what I would say is in our current policies, yeah, you can't, yeah. Nilda, one of the things we're gonna have to go through our policy process for all our policies, so we need to warn them for adoption from there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we have a policy that tells us about that.
Yeah, so we can't really approve that.
We can't really approve that. So I think you may have to, we can redo that and recognize that mistake.
Yeah, dang it.
Okay.
What gets warned?
It has to be warned for policy adoption, and your policy on policies says that it needs to be at least warned once. We try to do it twice for 2 readings. You can do it once, that you warn it for adopt, but you have to warn it for adoption for policies. That's what.
So, Bill, when we have these on our agenda for tonight, it's really all for discussion.
It's all for discussion.
So we are presently operating as an ad hoc policy committee.
Pretty much. The class size policy, and what I should say, the current class size policy there's for Maple Run is that it requires the superintendent to work with the board to develop guidelines for minimums and maximums. I want to ask Nilda, the whole board, is it the pleasure of the board that we stay at this and that we work on it as a board and superintendent? Or is there a different way you'd like to do it? I gave you some example policies from different districts that range from something like what we have here to where the board puts strict numbers and guidelines on different groupings of students. I would also say you asked me to talk to the leadership team and what their pleasure is. I can say without a doubt from our conversation yesterday as a leadership team, and I'm representing all of them, that they would really like the board to take a position on this. That it's not just the leadership team or not just the superintendent making minimums and maximums and ranges for class sizes. That they really feel, especially as we're going into a tough budget year, that it's important that we all stand together with this. So I don't know what the pleasure is of the board, if we keep our current and we just talk about sizes, or if it would like to be adjusted. And that's the answer I think we need to talk about tonight as we get ready to start the budget process, which we're already starting internally. Pretty quickly.
Right. And I think just to add to our the thinking on this, class size policy is important when we're talking about staffing guidelines. Because how many students you have in a class will dictate how many teachers and support personnel you might need. We have that on our agenda to discuss a little later, but we need to understand how important that is. So board, how do you feel about all this?
I have a question. So Bill, when you talked to the principals, they just said whatever we decide is fine with them. They didn't have any opinion on class size.
We didn't get into numbers, Jess. They were I'm gonna be pretty bold here. They were concerned that the board would turn it back to the leadership team and they're willing to make a recommendation, but they really need the board to take a stand on it. Because what it could do is make an adversarial between the teachers and the administrators if the board wasn't making that stand, wasn't taking a position on it. And so there wasn't a lot of discussion about the size of it so much. It wasn't when we sat there and said, here are the numbers of where we are. We've been using a lot of what the Vermont recommended class size comes out of the education quality standards, which is 20 or less for K3 and 24. It actually says 25 or less for 4 through 12, but we've been using 24.
So we're obligated to the quality standards as of, is it July 1st, 2025?
Well, those are the next revisions. These are the older one, the current ones that are in state. We've been obligated to quality standards since for a long time. I'd have to go look when they first got enacted.
Okay.
We've had different versions of them. So
okay, and the newer version, which we will be obligated to do not discuss these numbers. Is that
they don't
correct?
change the numbers. They don't change the
Okay,
numbers.
they don't
Yep.
change the numbers. Right. Jessa, did you get what you need on that?
Yeah, and I guess just a follow-up. So, I mean, we're not gonna go bigger than the Vermont standards. You have to stay with the Vermont standards, right?
No, I wouldn't say that would happen. And all the examples I gave you of the ones who have numbers in it, they're pretty much following the Vermont education quality standards.
Right. And all the information that Bill sent us in all that pedagogical language, certainly talked about class smaller is not necessarily better either, even though we may conceptually in our head thought it maybe would be because there would be more contact time. I think it is certainly clear that that's not the way to go because you don't get that shared, I can't remember what the word is, shared knowledge, people thought, thinking. What's that phrase that they used in that article? And John said it in his presentation.
John, you want to help Milda out?
I've totally lost it.
Yeah,
you don't want to
decrease in the academic and social diversity of the classroom.
Sure.
Right. So yeah, when you get to a certain point, there are social emotional pieces, there's academic pieces, you don't have the same variety of perspectives or richness of discussion and connection in the classroom.
Right. Right.
Below us.
Yes. And you don't get as much original thought that
you don't get the diversity. You don't get the diversity. You're saying the same way I am. I'm just saying it a little differently. You don't get the diversity of thought.
Right. Diversity of thought. Yeah. So I'm happy to put numbers in this as we can. Is there a specific recommendation?
Well, I can come back with a specific recommendation, but I agree with Jess, frankly, if we say we're following the education quality standards. I think that, I don't know if you were recommending that, Jess, but in our conversation, you were asking me that, and I wouldn't see Maple Run going above sizes. Do we have classrooms that do go above that? Yes, we do. I want to be really direct. But it's about average class size is what it says.
Why are we going above the size? Do we not have enough staff for it?
It sometimes, it happens in the high school, Amanda. Something can happen with scheduling. We have some classes that I think go up to 28, but I'd have to check that. And that could be scheduling of kids and trying to make all that work and give a student a schedule for everything they would like to take.
I certainly would like to see the language state that we're following the quality standards, Vermont quality standards. What about the rest of the board?
That's the
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
That looks like yes, it's over here.
So we can bring back a revision, Nilda, to the next one and warn it to follow the education quality standard for averages when we look at groupings of classes.
That sounds great.
Okay.
So as far as teaching and learning policy, Bill, any comments on that?
So I brought that to the board trying to look at, and it was what was talked about earlier in the vision pieces, is we have, in the work we've been doing for the past 3 or 4 years, is focusing on our literacy and our numeracy. And they had 4 different layers of the example that comes from the Mountain View Supervisory Union, which is Woodstock area. But it really talks about using the state standards and the content areas which are spoken to there is what we're prioritizing our work after literacy and math. So that would bring and it does that in those areas. And that helps focus our work. So I don't know if that to me is something that I think would be good for a policy committee, because this is not a draft policy to you. I brought you one that was shown in another district, but to talk about, and for the board on November 1st, we'll be talking about priorities that the board would like to see for the budget being developed. So I think that would be some good work that could be done between now and then.
Okay. That sounds good. What about the equity policy?
So in your packet, you asked me to go look for a facilitator. So Harry Frank, who works for Up for Learning, and Jacoby can give you a reference on him, because Jacoby, he works with us at BFA, but he has helped other districts, and Up for Learning has helped other districts develop an equity policy. It is something that came out of the strategic plan and came out of the work that teachers did last year, asking for the board to have a policy on equity. So I went and got a proposal from Harry. He's looking at probably 3 different meetings. He knows the work that we've done in our strategic plan work. And one of those would be a community forum to talk about what is needed in the equity, but he would come and work with the board on 3 separate sessions on this. And the estimate is $5,000 for the work. And there's more detail in that outline that's in your attachment.
I will speak to the work of Harry Frank and Up for Learning. I am a youth program specialist with the organization, which means that I am on their payroll as a youth partner and youth staff member. And one of the things that Up for Learning does to set apart itself from not only many organizations in Vermont but across the country is they have youth involved in the planning of the agenda that will be at the meeting, and they would like as many youth to be involved in the process. So most likely the people planning the agenda for these meetings will not just be me as a youth, but there will be other youth program specialists from across the state and across the country. Probably 3 or 4. We have people in 6 different states, and we've worked in 2 different nations that will help go into the planning of this. Even if they can't make it here, the equity work will be drafted by a diverse group of youth and adults from the organization, and that is what I think makes it a really cool thing to be a part of, is because you have youth and adults working together to not only build this, but they'll also encourage youth and adults working together to create Maple Run's equity policy, and then behind that the tools used to create this policy that are given from Up for Learning have been co-created and co-drafted by youth and adults from the organization. And I feel as a youth staff member, like super empowered there and really like a valuable asset to the team, and so do my youth colleagues there. So I think it is a great investment.
Great.
And Jacoby, thanks for saying that, because in the proposal, the board, looking at that attachment, you'll see that Harry referenced the Student Voice Committee as being part of the work.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention too is, he's been the one who's been working with the Student Voice Committee over the past 3 years, so he is super familiar with our strategic plan work, and he'll be coming in October to work with us on the strategic plan goals that we were working on, as I mentioned in my report earlier. So he's already super familiar with the work that the district's administration and the youth are doing, so he's already, in this community, so it's a really great, pretty seamless transition for him.
Perfect. So the equity policy is obviously a bigger plan and involves several meetings. And I guess we'll wait to hear from Bill and administration.
Well, is this something the board wants to go forward with? I was asked to bring a proposal.
Okay, gotcha.
I need to know from the board before I go sign a contract.
Yeah.
Something you want to go forward with.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, board, how do you feel about that? As far as entering a contract with Up for Learning to get some group work on the equity policy to include a community forum.
And that $5,000 price tag, I assume that's something that would be easily within our discretionary funds, or where it would come from?
We can afford to do that, yes. Yeah.
We have like board money, right, to do something like that, yes. So is there any objection, or does anyone want to speak to this plan? Other than Jacoby, who loved it?
So are we adding community members?
Community is in phase 2 of the plan. So it's whole school and community. Yeah, I should say whole school and community engagement and data collection. But like the whole school community, I think can be interpreted as like from across like district, like parents as well. For the data collection.
Okay. So sounds like we want to move forward.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, do we need to take, do we need to act?
I don't need an action, Nilda. I just needed to know what the board was. I can sign the contract. I just want to make sure that everyone was bought into it.
Yep.
And that I have enough, I need what I need as a superintendent to start the work.
Okay, so you got what you need?
I got what I needed.
Thank you. Okay, fundraising policy next, Bill.
Yes, one of the things that we don't have, and this could go to the subcommittee as well, we do not have a policy on fundraising. We have a lot of, one of the things that you as a board told me very loudly and clear, it's probably now 3 years ago, was that you wanted the general fund to take care of all aspects of costs for educating our students. We have fundraising going on, we have all sorts of fundraising going on. I'm just going to leave it like that. And some of it, what concerns concerns me the most, and I know I'm going to speak a little bit for Brianne, but we have some fundraising that's happening in the name of Maple Run or in the name of our schools that's not running through our business office. And that puts the organization at risk. So we don't have a policy on fundraising. I brought you, there's a very big template that's used by quite a few schools. It doesn't come from VSBA. It started at Harwood Unified Union School District about fundraising, but it has a statement that's very clear, that's very similar to the one this board gave me 3 or 4 years ago, about that the general fund pays generally for everything kids need. And that we're not a fundraising organization. I don't know, Neil, does that give enough overview, you think?
I think it does. It's definitely, from my experience, I know it happens. I don't know what goes directly through finance and what doesn't in the old days when my kids were doing it, but I think it's good to get this on the books as a policy.
The example I talked about started at Harwood. I gave you it's actually from Milton, has actually got some more detailed procedures behind it. And I know that's the responsibility of the superintendent, but this policy sits the same in Champlain Valley, Harwood. I'm pretty sure it is at Essex as well. I just stopped after I asked the superintendents in Vermont, a bunch of people pointed me back to Harwood's as the model template. So.
Excellent. Okay, so we do have a plan for the policy work. So I'm going to now move on to new business. So first item on new business agenda
The
is,
policy, I just have one question for the fundraising, so we're not taking action tonight, we're just reading
Right.
it. So we
Yeah.
can talk about it. I just wanna make sure something's included in there that parents are notified of the fundraising and told what the purpose of the funds are for. Is that-
Yeah. I agree, Jess. That's why I kind of, you heard me ask Nilda if I gave it enough context. I have been embarrassed, maybe too strong, but shocked as a superintendent. Some of the fundraising things that I've learned in the past couple of years around Maple Run. And so they need to be approved by the superintendent or the designee, and they need to be in alignment with what we're doing. I'm not trying to stop fundraising. I'm trying to make sure that people are aware of why and where we're doing it, and that if we're raising money, it's not forcing anyone to go fundraise.
right,
That last statement is really important to me.
yeah. Definitely. Thanks, Jess. All right, so new business. First item is quarterly financial reports. You have it in attachment 8A. And Brianna is here or is online if she's not here. I don't know,
Yeah.
is she present? Okay, thank you. And she will review that with us.
So in your packet, you will see that there is an attachment called Summary of Expenditures for FY25. And a couple meetings ago, I gave all of you a listing that looks kind of similar to this one for FY24, which was like the final recap. And I told you that it was going to look a little bit different. So what I did is I consolidated some of the lines for this is FY25 though. I consolidated some of the lines, but in here we have the working budget in one column, and the next column is the actual encumbered expenses, and then the remaining balance. As you can see in here, there is some substantial remaining balances in each of the lines. That's something that's good that we want to be kind of seeing, especially because we're just starting out this fiscal year. But pointing to like direct instruction where there's over $4 million remaining in there, that's because we've got quite a few open positions and in the system, as well as supplies that have not been spent this year. We had asked for the schools to put in purchase orders so we can encumber the funds, but you know, we're still early. We don't know what's going to be spent throughout the year. Another significant one that's on here is the extra co-curriculars. With that, again, we don't have positions encumbered for the winter and the spring sports positions, as well as gear that needs to be purchased throughout the school year. Also, in the office of the principal, there's expenses in there that are school-wide expenses. So, like paper comes out of that account line, and you know, if we're paying for like a committee meeting lunch or something like that, that's also listed in there. Going down a little bit further in technology, there's still technology projects that come out of that line. So there's still, you know, $750,000 in there. Same thing with operations and maintenance. There are some upcoming projects, but we haven't encumbered it because we haven't acquired a vendor for some of these projects. Flipping over to the next page, again, in special ed, we have direct instruction, where we have more unfilled positions. Yes?
Before you flip.
Yeah.
The Collins Curley.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I skipped right over that one. So that one has been overspent because we were funding the $180,000 sidewalk project with Gosselin construction, which all of you have approved, but it came out of FY25. So we will be moving money from the capital funds from there, but we had to pay for it out of FY25 funds. So that's why it's reflected in that one. Thank you. Thank you for catching that one. And then out of district placement, right there, it's showing that we have almost $500,000 in there. And this is tuition and additional services and contracts. Just this week, since I've ran this report, we've encumbered another $100,000 for student outplacements that have been on waiting lists in there. And then
And the projection for the last 300,000 is what is that gonna be utilized for?
potentially additional contracts that come up or additional expenses. Because we do have additional kids who are on waiting lists to go to outplacements at this point. I don't have numbers of how many students, but I do know there are quite a few that are on there. And then in here, you'll see that student supports is also overspent. So within the last couple of weeks, I've been working with the principals to go through all of where their staffing are located. And we are reclassing the staffing because of what they actually do and the uniform chart of accounts where they have to fall depending on their job duties. So I will be reclassing or moving budget funds also to accurately reflect where they should be sitting and hitting in either direct instruction or student supports. Because I know in some of these areas we had paraeducators versus behavior interventionists, so we need to just make sure that we have them in line to where they're actually working in schools. And then again, with student transportation, with the outplacement of students and the contracts that we have, some of these student transportation costs are quite substantial. So therefore, we have overspent student transportation. And I'm not sure how many more we're going to have come in this year. But again, I'll have to be moving budget funds to cover that student transportation. And then the Northwest Career and Technical Center, they operate kind of in a different model. There is $395,000 left in that direct instruction, but also we have an encumbered supplies, and with the technical center, there's a lot of supplies that they go through, especially building trades and automotive, where they're consistently building things and the price of lumber is quite high. So that is that attachment. And then if you turn to the second attachment in there, I have the budget by department, just so that you can see it in a pie chart. So it's everything that's reflected on this first handout that I had, but it's now reflected in a pie chart. Just so that you can see that indirect instruction, it's a big chunk of the pie, along with special and direct instruction, following close up with ONEM and guidance services. Are there any questions? Charlie?
For encumbrances, salaries are encumbered for the full fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, all salaries and all benefits who currently hired employees are encumbered. So the employees who we haven't hired or the open positions, those are not reflected in any encumbrance because we don't know what we're gonna pay them.
Any other questions for Brianna?
I'm seeing none, so thank you very much for that report. Next item on the agenda is early retirement. We have an attachment 8B. Bill?
Excuse me, you called on me right when I was coughing. We have a side letter with the association that allows the board to take up to 8 teachers who are selecting to retire and provide them an early retirement incentive. Excuse me for a second. I just need to drink some water. And so we've had 4 people, 4 current teachers who've asked for that. It's a benefit of up to $12,000. If they teach less than 20 years, it gets prorated. So you'll see in your attachment who the 4 are. And they've all requested in the time of submitting a letter before October 1st, which was yesterday. Our history is the board may or may not approve this request as it says in the side letter. It's up to the board. You have in almost every year that I've been here, I can say that. So this would be year 6. So I take any questions or concerns or comments.
Oh, I'm good. Anybody else have questions?
I do. So Bill, we're entering like a different time in terms of the amount of people who will be retiring. Do you feel like this number needs to get readjusted to fit the needs of this next generation of people who are going to be retiring? Will 8 always be okay?
Yeah. Will 8, you mean, that's what I got from you is will 8 always be okay? I'd have to go do a demographic study, but what I've been actually, joining in most schools, as you know, in Vermont, there's a big bubble in the 50-year-old and older crowd.
Yeah.
Not in Maple Run. We're pretty evenly distributed.
Okay.
Looked at our demographics of our staff in past years. Last year, I think we just got up to 8 and we took 2 people after the October 1st deadline. The board elected to do that. So I think that number's okay. To really answer your question, I'd have to go rerun the demographics of the staff, but.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Right. Anyone else? So this is an action item. Need a motion to accept the early retirement request by the teachers as submitted in attachment 8B. Please. What was that?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Amanda,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Jack. Oh, Jack's not here. Jessica,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Nakuma,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nilda votes yes, motion carries. Next item is the MRUSD organizational structure update. You have that in your packet as attachment 8C. Bill?
Yeah, we promised back in the springtime that we'd bring this back to you all. So this is the structure of the leadership team that you see in an organizational chart and how that works. We couldn't fit it all onto one page, so we have the central office and then the building leaders, which are at that same, they're at the same place of all the directors except for all the leadership team members except for John and myself. And then you see their assistants as well on the second or third page there. So I just wanted to, I had promised I'd bring this back. I'm just trying to keep to my word on that. I'd be glad to take any questions there are about that structure, or if there was something here I'd like to know more about one of these departments that either we could do in a board meeting or education session, we'd be glad to do that. So.
Any questions, or is this pretty straightforward? I'm not hearing any questions, so I'm gonna move on to the budget. So there's two parts to this. The first one is understanding the cost drivers, and that's attachment 8D, excuse me, 1. And Bill, I think you and Brianna are dealing with this.
Yes. So, in the first board meeting in September, we had a memo from the Vermont School Boards Association, the Vermont Business Managers Association, and the Superintendent's Association that outlined the cost drivers for all of Vermont education. And in their first attachment there, we didn't get the time, we ran out of time at the last board meeting to go over what are the cost drivers for Maple Run, because it showed there what were the estimates for the state and the overall ed fund. So for Maple Run, if we were to keep our budget as is currently, and keep our structure as is currently, I can give you some of what those cost drivers are. And Bree, sorry, Bree, I can't remember. Usually I can't see you right now, but were you doing this part? I feel like I just trampled into your zone.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally take this.
Okay.
So in here, right, this year, we have personnel budgeted for $40,398,521. And if we're expecting a 4% increase, we would be going up to $42 million and change. Health insurance, we are looking at a potential 17% increase. We don't know, we won't know until at least November, when VisFit will lets us know what their upcoming renewal amounts are. In the news, I know everybody saw that it was going to be over 20% with Blue Cross Blue Shield, but with us being in a state of Vermont health plan, they said that it could be a little bit lower. It probably won't be that full 20. So that's why we're estimating 17%. But it's, again, it's over $1.5 million additional for just health insurance. All the other benefits, excuse me, sorry. Oh, sorry, Nilda, I thought you were talking. All the other benefits, including like dental, health, life, we estimated another 4% for this. So it's going to potentially be an additional $300,000 for that cost. Everything else that's listed there is more or less supplies, things like that, which is a 4% increase that we're believing. Facilities, we're estimating 4%, but it's hard to know what facilities will be, because the cost of everything goes up crazy with facilities. And transportation, the contract that we have is an 8% increase, but with field trips and extracurricular bus trips that they take, that was a stagnant amount across where it wasn't an increase, but we don't know how many field trips we're going to go on also. So that's why we budgeted for a 5% increase for that. So with that, if we were to take on all of those increases for everything, we would be increasing the budget by $2 million. And I think what Bill wants to also ask is, does the board want to be increasing the $2 million?
Am I going too far, Bill?
Yeah, a little bit. So there's, if you add up all those pieces that Bree just went over, all those cost drivers, which are linked to that outline that you have from the organizations, it's a $4.2 million increase. So that's about an 8% increase just on spending alone. We don't know what's happening to the revenue sides as those you've been through budgets before. That piece, if we went with a $4.2 million increase and we kept everything else the same, because we don't know what the dollar yield's going to be, we don't know what CLA is going to be, we don't know a lot of revenue pieces right now. So this is really, really, really rough. I want to caution you all on that and what I'm about to say. But keeping all those the same and going through our tax rate calculator, that would be an 11-cent increase before CLA. So 4.2 million, that's keeping the, level service. And that's what we did last year was level service. If we, as you all know, Governor Scott came out with a letter in the middle of September asking schools to keep their spending increases to 3%. So if we kept it at 3%, we would need to cut $1.9 million off that 4.2 million. And that would get us to 3%, but at the same increase, and that would be a 6 cents increase on the tax rate before CLA. As you all know, the city is reappraising right now. I don't think they're going to be done in time for this next fiscal year. So just wanted to make sure the board was aware of like what we're looking at right now. This is very, very rough. But I wanted to make sure you had the information, and I'm sorry we didn't get to it at the last meeting.
Can I ask one question that I don't understand? The bottom line is the government spending limit. What does that entail?
Say that again.
I'm just trying to understand the chart, and it says like gov spending limit. I just want to understand what that was.
So we just cut it we did a straight across the board 3% increase. So we go from 76 million to 78 million, 78.5 million. And so that's a $1.9 million. And so that's all we did. We didn't, none of this is going out and planning in the budget. This is running really high level numbers and assuming many assumptions in the tax calculations. So.
But it just so happens that if you just do the natural increase as predicted here, it comes up to 3% or 1.9 million. And if we were to cut where the governor would like us to be, it's also 1.9 million.
Well, actually, no, our increase with everything, if we kept everything the same, is 4.2, Nilda. That 4.2 that shows over on the side underneath the percentages there.
4.2 it is if we look at this chart.
If we look at this chart and we come over all across, we would go from a 76.2 million budget to an $80.4 million budget.
That's the 4.2, gotcha.
The 4.2. And remember that 4% for salaries is based on our current contracts that we're in with our memberships. So
right.
With our associations, I should say. And so that was taking what we have on what we are already agreed to and using that as our estimate. So, I mean, I want to remind the board, we're going to be looking for direction from you in November, the first meeting in November. But I think it's good for you to have this information now. We also talk about we'll have more energy numbers in November. So when Brianne was talking about facilities and escalations of prices, there's a lot more to know. We just don't have that yet. The biggest one for us is Vermont Gas and what they're going to come in at. And then the overall biggest one outside of salaries, and it's almost equal, the amount of salary dollars going to salaries is the increase in cost of benefits. They're almost both the same.
So are we guessing on health insurance for, what is it, the 2 positions we need for the new school?
So this is so for all health insurance, we put in that 17% for what we have for positions. And then Bree, do you want to explain how we budget for people we don't know who's going to be in the position?
Yes, so if we don't know to be hired positions, we do estimate for professional staff $105,000 for salary and benefits. So we estimate that they're going to take the full family plan, just because we don't know what we're going to get. Hopefully we want like someone who gets a cash in lieu, so that they're not taking the health insurance. But we always try to estimate $105,000 for a professional staff, $65,000 for a paraeducator. So just so that somebody at a 75,000, then it can help offset it.
So does this include the facilities for the new school, the Highgate Commons?
The $4.2 million does include the cost for facilities, yes. So, yes, and because this year we had estimated $193,000 for, like O&M at a location, so, yes.
So if you look at this chart, there doesn't appear to be many things that we have any control over. Except for maybe everything else, whatever that means.
I wouldn't say that, Nilda. I would say that, you know, we're just trying to show you from where we currently are and how we're currently structured and how we're currently staffed. That, you know, the board could say, hey, we want a bottom line of X. And, you know, we've got to go build a budget that gets to that. What we want you to know is if we kept the current structure and assume everything the same with these inflators, it gets to 4.2 million. It's a very rough calculation. And because we just have to apply that across everything. If the board came back and said, hey, we want you to meet that, what the governor was suggesting at 3%. Okay, we've got to go figure out, that's the administration's job to figure out how we get there. And bring that back, present that to you as a board.
So where are we in understanding, what we're, actually spent, right? So I know this is what we budget each year, but there were 22 positions that we didn't fill last year, right? So that's 22 people that, aren't getting salaries, aren't getting health insurance. So, that's just something for us to, where are we at this year in terms of open positions? Because we keep budgeting for positions that we're not filling, so then we need to take a look at what positions we can, like, do without.
Yes, absolutely. I don't have the number of open positions that we currently have.
Do you know if it's more or less than 22?
I think we're right around 20, aren't we, Bill?
I think so, but I mean, we've been doing better and running than last year, but not much better than in open positions. But I can get that for you, Joanna. I mean, I can get you that in a couple of days. I just have to go ask for it. I didn't bring it with me.
And so using the numbers from last year, Bill, I can't recall it right now, but do you remember? Because I think we did that. So if you
Yeah.
took those 22 people, what did that calculate to?
Yes, I don't know what that was. I would need to know what positions they are.
Which ones are 105 and which ones are 65? But do you remember, like, we did do that last year?
So if I could give, some historical perspective, last year we kept level services across, so we budgeted the people that we hadn't hired. Partly because the state of Vermont had a 5% cap up until 2 weeks after we passed our budget when they reversed course. But like last year, one of our big areas was that even if we had started cutting a lot of that, then we were going to pay the same tax rate up until the point where we no longer had control to the budget. And this year, I think we're in a completely different boat because you keep level services, then we don't have any sort of cap, even one that can be taken away.
Right. I think Charlie, sorry, Chuck, I'm kind of butting in, but I think both of you are right. And Joanna, I agree with where you're going of saying, like, if you're not able to fill those positions and then we should be talking about how much that is in the budget. And so I totally agree with that. I just don't have, it's exactly what you said. It's an accounting of what are those positions and what have we put in the budget for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Susan, you have a question?
I did. I was curious if the facilities number reflected in case you find a new location for this office. No.
Well, yeah, not right now. Well, we're just rolling the budget over from where we are.
So tell me if this is true. If we do have 20 open positions, if they were all professional staff, that means we would have 20 times $105,000 on the table.
Yeah,
Okay,
that isn't being used, and that would usually hit our capital fund and would roll over.
right, right.
And
I just want to.
that's all in theoretic. That's all theoretical right now. I'd rather
I
get
understand,
actual.
and I know what I said is kind of theoretical because we don't know what those positions are, the breakdown and all, but just to understand the math part.
Yep.
All right, so that's our information on budget. Any more questions for regarding the cost drivers?
I don't have a question, but I have, I guess, a request in terms of how we move forward is, I've been kind of banging the drum for like a multi-modeling approach, and this is a very good start. I'd like to know if if it's possible. I'd like to, as we continue to go forward, see, for example, what level services looks like, what it looks like if we cut it down to the $1.9 million spending limit, and then like a more extreme version of what it would look like if we kept everything capped at level spending, just so that we can see what the effects on tax rate and what we would have, what the effects on tax rate are and what we would give up if folks are amenable to looking at those three models.
Right, that would be good. And understanding that would be important because we don't even really understand that. And we're gonna get into staffing guidelines and targets here next, but it's kind of part of that same conversation, right? Understanding.
Well, yeah, I don't really want to say cut $1 million out of the budget without knowing what we're cutting to get to that million.
Right. But
Okay, I'm gonna shut up for now and let's go to hold your thought there, Charlie. And let's go to staffing guidelines and targets, talk about that, and then we'll see if we can come up with a plan. Bill.
Yes.
Brianna.
So in attachment 8D2, you'll see a pie chart that looks similar to the one Brienne, and this is all her great work. So, Bree, do you want to go over what this FTEs by department is?
Yes, so this is hired FTEs by department, so I don't have the unfilled positions listed in here. But as you can see, right, the direct instruction and the direct instruction for special ed consists of most of the FTEs. So we have a lot of tier 1 instruction in there. The other different pieces of the pie chart are all the other supports, operations and maintenance and security, pre-K special ed services, the Northwest Career and Technical Center. So it's a big breakdown of where all of our people are in each of the departments.
And Bree, didn't you put this, these are the same categories that you gave the budget report on, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that we are going to bring you more data on this later on, because as you said, Bree, right, you're still trying to make sure everyone's classified in the right budget function area. Yeah. So this is kind of the work as we wish we were a little bit more done on it, but Bree's has been doing a lot of great work with the colleagues on the leadership team to make sure that everyone's coded to the right area of the budget and that we can look at the FTEs that way. But one of the things I would turn your attention to is you could take these numbers and look at it. I actually started to write some FTEs next to the different budget lines on the side, the budget report that Bree gave earlier. So you can use that report with this report. But what I have you go to is the last page. It's called National and State K-12 Staffing Data, Fall 2022. And Jess, I want to thank you for something you said in the last board meeting. You said we were talking about something and you were asking about numbers pre or post pandemic. So these are numbers that come from, and it was really helpful because it keyed me. John and I started looking at stuff from the National Center for Educational Statistics. What can we get from the latest staffing numbers? And so they're about 2 years behind in processing all the data, but this is from the fall of 22, so the 22-23 school year. And these are percentages for how, and these are their categories. They may not be our categories. And one of the things John and I are still working on, you'll see the Maple Run lines in here blank. We will fill these in for you and bring it back. But we want to look at what's the distribution of the Maple Run budget to the Vermont state average distribution and the national distribution. And it's not to say that those are targets for us, but there are places where we can ask, why might there be a difference? And I would ask the board to ask us, why might there be a difference? There could be good reasons why we're doing that. We decide to put more staff in one area than another. And that usually comes from student need. But we're trying to, so Jess, it's your question that kind of drove us down this way. So thank you for it. Keep asking the questions. Everyone, but it was yours. I wanted to recognize your question was very helpful. So you'll see some definitions of each column down below. We're still working on getting all those, but there's also one of the things that's here that we didn't put on here was ratios of the type of position to the number of students. So there are ratios for district administrators, for principals, for teachers, for instructional aides. We were looking at this yesterday in the leadership team, and the leadership team said, why are they singling out school and library support staff and librarians and guidance counselors? This report started in 1944. It's still going today.
Cool.
So what we've really noticed across the nation is there has been a decrease in the ratios and an increase in number of staff. That's not just Vermont, that's a national average. John, you helped me look for a lot of this data. Was there something you might add that I didn't highlight in this table that we're just starting to use?
No, I mean, I'll just highlight my frustration that the definitions aren't easier to come by. It's a wonderful tool, there's a lot of information, but it's certainly not user-friendly.
And I'd like one of John's former colleagues, off of your question, Jess, helped point us down this direction to go look at this data. So we were trying to find ways to answer it. So it's the most recent data we had to look at. And it's not to say they're the target, it's just to ask us why we structured the way we are. So more to come on that, but we want to use those as ways of looking at our configuration. Any questions, comments, concerns?
So am I reading this right when it says that Vermont is it saying that Vermont has less teachers than national?
Yes, as a percentage of the overall staff, you are correct. We have less teachers, we have less administrators than compared to the overall staff. Vermont, and I've seen this in many places, Joanna, we have a lot more aides as a percentage of staff than the nation aid does.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you guys for putting all this together in visuals, because it's nice to be able to see everything broken down. I know it's not easy to do, so I really appreciate you guys doing that for doing the budget.
So, John, you mentioned definitions. Sometimes, we hear these terms over and over and over, but I can't tell you that I can make the distinction between a support services person in a classroom versus a support services person in an office setting, if that even exists. And Charlie, I think this is part of where you were going too, right?
Yes.
I understand. What does it mean when you say there's one teacher and 3 paraeducators and 1 SEL or whatever in a classroom? you know, we as a board member have heard those terms, but do we really understand what they mean and how many students those individuals touch in the classroom? So is that like a one-on-one thing, or if there's an SCL person in classroom, is it particular to one student or particular to 3 students, or do they work in groups? Do they work half a day? Do they switch? All that kind of stuff. And I know that's a formidable task, but I think the information exists. It's a matter of collating all that together. Right, Bill? Do you think?
Well, I think that's, yeah, we have some of the information that exists there, I know that Charlie had said to me, you know, it's also kind of knowing what do they do for different categories, like what is their job, what do they do for a job, and how do they support kids? Right, Charlie?
Yeah, this actually touches on something I was going to ask in a little bit, but we have our education sessions, and one of the things I'd like to use an education session for, preferably earlier rather than later, because I think it's relevant to the budget, is just defining what the different support roles are and you know why we have them and why they're important. The question I was going to ask is, we have an educational session coming up this month with attendance and school engagement, which is an important topic as well. And I don't want to bump that, but I'm wondering if it would be valuable to use that slot for something along, you know, defining those for us, so that we know going into the budget season what roles we're talking about.
Yeah, that's good.
And I guess that would just be a question of whether other people would find that useful information, and whether we want to use our education sessions for that.
Board?
I got a thumbs up.
Are we hearing yes, that people would like to have this
Yeah.
information?
Okay, we could do some switching around, and I can ask some colleagues to come in and explain the different types of support positions and what they do and why they're important.
I'm not even sure, and this is embarrassing, but I'm not even sure I understand clearly that the multi-tiered system, you know, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and you don't have to explain that right now, but I know they're highly qualified teachers are tier 1, right?
So, so that's a whole nother piece to do some education on the MTSS.
Well, that's all NCSS?
MTSS. M as in Mary, T as in SS.
Okay. Do you know what that stands for?
Multi-tiered systems of support.
Gotcha. Well, I did say multi-tiered when I asked the question. Okay, so not necessarily connected to these roles that we're talking about?
I mean, yes, is it a whole system, and do the people work in those? Yes. Is it the multi-tiered system and how that operates is has some relation to those roles, but I don't know that it's direct. I think those are 2 different sessions about what different positions to do. And let me consult the leadership team. There might be some pieces of how we talk about MTSS with the positions, but.
All right, don't worry about it. I don't want to complicate things even further. All right, so we're going to talk about Charlie requested an educational session. You said yes, so do we have a plan for that or no?
We have one on, I'm just gonna bring up my schedule. We have our next one is scheduled for October
14th.
Thank you. Someone's much faster than I am. October 14th. So we would move what we have now to that session. We'd move that topic to then.
Okay.
Bill?
Yeah,
So if we could just be thinking about, and this is like to Brianne, to John, to you, when we're asking for information and it's, you know, scheduled to come, if you can be looking at it through a lens of what we're talking about here, right? Instead of us having to, oh, you know, do you have this piece? Oh, I didn't have that piece of information. So the lens we're looking at here is what have we been operating with? What have we not had? You know what I'm saying? And what could we potentially do without for the next year? So just be thinking about that, I guess, when we are gathering information for these, whether it's the educational sessions, or just presenting information to us. Because I think that we are definitely interested in the historical information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on here. Other business is warrants. I'd like a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board members participating remotely. Can I have that motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Let's take a vote. Amanda,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Harley,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Nakuma,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nilda votes yes. Warrants are approved. Superintendent's report.
Okay, Bree, do you have that information on the alternative program?
I do.
Okay, so the board, you asked for an update on where we were budget spending, current spending to date and budget for the alternative program that you saw back in June. So Bree's gonna give you that.
Okay. So we have, for the alternative program, we have a budget in there of $1 million, $1,063,834, to be exact, in the budget. So far, we have hired 4 professional staff. We have not hired yet 2 regular ed teachers. 1 counselor has been hired, but they are completing a long-term sub position at SATEC. So once once they have finished at that long-term subbing position, and I'm not sure when they are ending it, I think it's December, they will then fulfill the counselor role. And then we will be taking 2 VI positions, and we'll be pulling them from one of the schools to go into the position. Because our premise is the VIs won't be the, 10 VIs, right? That we have, but 2 of them potentially won't be needed at the school anymore. So we can then outsource the remainder of those VIs to other areas that are needed. So with that being said, right now, unexpended and unbudgeted is $731,000 that we have available, that we haven't encumbered. But we have not yet encumbered any money for the location out at Highgate because we don't know the exact figures for it and when we're going to assume the lease or start the lease payments with them.
And so Bree, when you gave that 1.06, wasn't that just the salary? Isn't it like 1.3 is the total cost for the alternative program?
So what we had.
I may be wrong.
I think that was our expected budget, but what we actually put into the budget was the 1 million.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thanks. Sorry about that.
And then the other pieces of the superintendent report, you had all asked at the when we were doing that special meeting for approving the space, you wanted an update. So we're doing pretty well on that. BFA World Languages is planning another Spanish trip, and by the board's policy, I have to inform you. I don't need you to approve it, but unless you have questions about it, but a trip to Spain in 2026. They would be doing, they did one this past spring in April, during April vacation, they'd be doing it again. Kat Samono will be the lead on it. I know there's some other teachers going as well. And so they're putting that together right now. And the specific dates we'll get exact on as they work with the trip provider. I think it's EF again this time. They've used them quite a few times as a trip provider, as they do for school systems. I also, one of our student voice coaches, Amelia Wallace, I just want to give a shout out to her. She was a commended student in the National Merit Scholarship, which I forget exactly what percentage that is, but it's pretty high up there. In the how she scored, and basically it scores off the PSATs. She did a great job. And our fall SEL surveys are right now being submitted by students. This is the week in which they're self-assessing where they are with their social and emotional learning pieces. And I think the other thing I would tell you is that if you're needing a haircut or you need other beauty salon pieces, that the salon is now open at NCTC and they're taking outside customers. So I just want to highlight, they've done that this is their second year in doing it. And I know some folks in our own building that use them. So they do a great job. And as you all know, there's great homecoming and pep rallies and all that this past weekend. And I want to do a shout out to Cooper, at the PE teacher at City School. He did a interview with Channel 5 on today was National Walk to School Day. And he's helping organize it since Mitch had left us. And so he was on that. And the other piece of media was yesterday, I was on an article for Channel 5 about the statewide student assessment results. So.
Thank you.
Take any questions or comments or?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the plan if you can't find 2 teachers for the alternative schools?
We haven't made that plan yet, Joanna. We haven't tackled that one. So I don't have one if we don't have them. I know that I know of. I know that Alexis and Becky have had that conversation. I don't know what the results of that are. And I know that happened this past week.
Well, we're doing a lot of work to make this happen, but if we don't have teachers to teach the students, I don't see how this is gonna happen.
Yeah, I hear you.
But we're not gonna sign anything until that does happen.
We have to make sure we have it fully staffed. That's right. And we have the staff is working with students right now. So. And our program directors pulling together the details I know a lot of you have asked about for, how do students get admitted? What are the criteria and all that? And we need to have that person hired to start doing that, the details on that. Alexis gave the overview on that when she talked to you back in June.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Board announcements.
I have one. So I have a new job at the hospital as the manager of population health, which I'm very excited about. And we were meeting, and one of the women on the team was talking about how her friends found vapes in her daughter's backpack and didn't know what to do and how to handle it. So I found a potential guest for your podcast who can go on and talk about that. Amy Brewer, you might have met her before.
Oh yeah, she's on the list already. Amy's already on.
Yeah.
She doesn't know she's on the list, but she's on the list.
Yeah, she's willing, and she'll give you a little blurb for your newsletter too, if you want.
Oh yeah, we can add Amy, definitely. It's a great idea. Yeah, that's awesome. Great.
Jess, is that Denise's former job?
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. Congratulations.
Good for you. Congrats. Any other board announcements? Okay, board reflections, we touched that earlier. Keep an eye on events that are happening. Make sure you remember to fill out a form so we can do evaluations and reflections on events that we attend. The board annual work plan, we have a link. Is that a live link?
That's a live link. Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to ask the board a question, Nilda. Just thinking about this, because it's a plan, right? It's, you can change things around. So as I look at the budget development process, and I was talking with Aaron Rushlow, we would like to have a time to hear from the community. And I look at our next meeting in October, which is on the 16th, I believe, that we were going to talk about what are the community's priorities, and if we brought the community in. And Aaron said to me, what if we tried to survey, just did a quick survey out so there was something to talk about, but also invite people in to talk. We also have at that same time one of our monitoring reports for one of the goals on consistent policies to address bias and behavior. And one of the things I've been noticing in our meetings when we have the goal reports or student data, we tend to go pretty long in our report section. So would it be better, like we did tonight, not to have a report and do the community priorities the first meeting in November? Or move the report? I'm just trying to think about time for meetings and get some input from the community about budget. A couple of superintendents have sent out some surveys. I've got some example questions that range anywhere from what are you most proud of at Maple Run? What are your concerns or creative ideas that you think that we could do to improve the schools? And as we build a budget for FY26, what do you want the board to know? And real simple type of thing, but trying to get some input so the board can, as all of you know, in November, the administration's going to be taking direction. Charlie gave his thinking tonight. But as we go build budgets. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. No, you and I had a little bit of a conversation. Just want to make sure time in each meeting to have the conversations we need to have.
It's a tough one because we need those reports, but as you said, I maybe had said it, they tend to go long. And it takes that long to share that information, but I don't know what the best time to do that is. So I don't know. What do you think of board members' comments?
Can I have a question? I have a question about Robert's rules. Some of the, is it against Robert's rules to put like a couple of different motions on? No, yeah, I guess I'm answering my question as I say it. But sometimes I feel like we could vote on multiple things at once, and we slow down the efficiency, but is that just how it goes? You can't do it differently?
Yeah, so part of that is my fault. I have to be getting the motion first.
Yeah, I'm not blaming you, Neil. I'm just asking.
No, I know, but
if
sometimes the discussion is just so, happens before I get the motion. And the proper way to do it is to get the motion on the record and then either approve or not the motion. But you're talking not about that. You're talking more about what?
If there's a way to link some motions together, so we're not putting things to a vote 5 different times, but it's around the same issue.
No, that we could probably look at that and also look at the consent agenda and talk about some of the things. Is there more that could go into the consent agenda? Or really try to streamline and say, hey, this part of the agenda. Because one of the things I've heard from all of you as board members, like, we want to talk more, but we know there's some operational stuff that just has to happen.
Right.
Like a good example tonight was probably the retirement incentive. Like, not that the board could reject it, but usually you don't, type of thing. Right. That might be a bad example, but I kind of hear where you're going, Joanna, like try to streamline this as much as we can.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yes. Consent agenda is generally a place for that, right? When things are pretty obvious. They're just kind of the obvious report.
Yeah, that's.
And not non-controversial, typically. We'll look at that. Good idea, Bill. Good idea, Joanne. Okay. So, as far as the work plan, anything more related to that? About,
So are we moving the community priorities, getting community involved on week 1 in November?
That's what I'm kind of suggesting, that I think you want to have plenty of time for that.
Yeah.
And so I would put that in November, take some of what we have that's, and do that, get a survey out, and then invite community in to come in and have a conversation with you with some prompted discussion. And really kind of use what I gave you tonight as the estimates will be a little more refined, so you can hear from the community. I think that's something you want to do. But I think you want the time for it, so I don't think you would have that with the report, so I would just say, let's put that into the first meeting in November.
sounds good. Okay. Agenda for future meeting. We have a support for new staff, budget, safety workers update, questions around budget should be sent to the board secretary if it happens, and it's along the way, so we can make sure we talk about that. Any other things? We don't need an executive session. Is there any other business that needs to come before the board? I'm sorry I was so bristly tonight. I apologize if I offended anyone, but it's been a day. All right, let's be adjourned. The time is 8:20.